The breaking news to bring you. In the last few moments, Nicola Sturgeon has been arrested in the investigation into the SNP's finances. Police Scotland have said. I have Nigel Nelson here with me in the studio. Nigel, this is an absolutely momentous thing to happen. Isn't it?
I mean, it's not really unexpected. We've been thinking for some time that the police would probably feel Nicola Sturgeon's collar. So far, she becomes the third arrest now, and what they're investigating is £600,000 of donations and who was doing what with them. Now, there's been no charges yet for anybody. It was very likely that Nicola Sturgeon, as First Minister and leader of the SNP at the time, would eventually have to be questioned by police.
Well, yes, and who else so far has been questioned by police? Remind us.
Well, her husband has, and there's one other who I now forget, but certainly her husband has been questioned because he was looking after those funds. And I would imagine that there would be more, that the whole question of SNP finances are now coming under the microscope, and there are likely to be others who will be looked at.
And it's interesting because all eyes have been on Westminster and the political saga that's going on within the Conservative Party. Look to Scotland, SNP former leader arrested.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's been an extraordinary weekend, really.
Absolutely extraordinary. And what does this mean for the SNP? Will this dominate the headlines? It seems to me that the SNP seem to sometimes get away with this sort of thing. It comes in and out of the papers, it comes in and out of the limelight. But this is absolutely huge. Nicola Sturgeon arrested, potentially over the finances of the party.
Yes, and I think that the SNP are obviously in real trouble over this. I mean, it wasn't a very good look when they couldn't even find any accountants to actually sign off on their accounts. So, in electoral terms, the opinion polls have been sort of dipping for them. Labour will want to use this as the best opportunity they can to capture some seats up in Scotland. What Keir Starmer really needs is, if he can get 20 seats up in Scotland, he doesn't have to worry about a hung parliament down here.
And what does this mean for Humza Yousaf, who's only just taken over as leader of the party?
Yeah, it was the worst time possible he could do that. He's trying to distance himself from the whole thing, and fair enough, he's not been implicated in any of this. So, as far as his position goes, he probably is okay, but it's not the greatest start to a leadership.
No, and of course there was so much talk and speculation over why Nicola Sturgeon stepped down as leader. Was it over the gender recognition laws that were deeply controversial, or was it this?
I have to say that when I heard her speak, when she actually did step down, I found that quite genuine, that basically she'd had enough, that she'd spent...
Really, Nigel?
Well, most of her life in politics, and there comes a point where you say, look, enough is enough. She wanted some me time, basically. So that sounded good, but obviously the suspicion is that this was swirling around behind the scenes, and that's why, one of the reasons why she knew it was time to go.
And this is not the first scandal to engulf the SNP, is it?
No, I mean, the SNP have had constant problems. I think this is probably the worst, though, that they've ever had, something like this, because when there are questions about how donors' money is being used, and ordinary people's money, bear in mind these are ordinary supporters, how that is being used, that's always a very bad look.